A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows. And welcome not to the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar, but instead to a rather grander cellar. This is the private recluse of Juan Miguel Chan, Group Sommelier for Southern Sun. And this is the Sound and Sun. If you've been to the Sand Deck that overlooks Sanson and is a humming and bursting with energy spot for a late afternoon, early evening drink on pretty much any day of the week, then you'll know roughly where we are. Not many people know this exact cellar, though. It's just hidden away off the corner of the deck, and it is full of, as I look around, some quite extraordinary wine, a fair amount of which I'm going to try and get into my bag before I head home. Miguel is always a most gracious host, as are his Southern Sun colleagues. And the reason that I am doing this here is because both myself and one of my guests this evening at 6 o'clock, just as the show wraps up, need to be a couple of hundred yards from here in the Santon Convention Centre, because the Stellenbosch Wine Routes community has gathered en masse here tonight, tomorrow, down in Soweto for a night of celebration, both this evening and again tomorrow, of the wines of Stellenbosch and the people who make them. So a big crew of winemakers have come up from the Cape. I think they've swapped 25 degrees in sunshine for a slightly brisker and chillier Johannesburg, and the chance to entertain what is South Africa's biggest wine market and showcase some of Stellenbosch's finest wine. So that is on the cards for a busy week of wine. Also coming up this week, I'll be down in the Cape on Thursday for the announcement of the Fine Wine Awards, with Amelie Lambert overseeing that and her team of judges. So down to Cape Town for that later on in the week. And Donovan Rahl is also in Johannesburg this week with his new releases. It is a busy time for wine in the Cape. A busy time last week. We had tastings with both Peter Allen Finlayson, his new Crystallums. The Agnes Chardonnay is just ridiculously good, and the quartet of Pinot Noir, all very different in their subtle and nuanced ways, but all strikingly good. Once again, Peter Allen does have that family gift, and also the chance with Chris Albrecht from Beauchard Finlayson to do a bit of time traveling. We went back to 1998 with the Gulp and Peak, and 99 with the Tête de Cuvée, those two headline Pinots. I think both of those were showing well, but it was the wines that were just a little younger that put the wine at its absolute best, and there were some seriously good examples of Pinot Noir. Also, some of the Mission Vale Chardonnay. And interesting to see how just over the last couple of years, the style has changed, as a lot of South African Chardonnay has, to that slightly leaner, slightly more precise version of Chardonnay, that bigger, bolder, more buttery style, not something we're seeing quite so much of. And I think certainly in the case of this one from Beauchard Finlayson, it does benefit from the refurb, and the wine across the board was a delight. As is going to be the wine from Stellenbosch a little later on this evening, and as is the wine from all three of our wine brands and all six of our guests. So why 6 guests when only 3 wine brands? Well, this Sunday is Father's Day, which means the Nickel children have been splashing out on socks and Old Spice as usual. I hope, though, that there'll be a bottle or 2 of wine added to that. And this evening gives us the chance to recommend 3 great wineries, but also more importantly, to take 3 father-son combinations who aren't just part of great family winemaking dynasties, but have a really special relationship with each other and the wine that they make. And so our guests on the show today, Neil Ellis and his son Warren join us very excitingly. Etienne, Riche and his son Christo, and Danie Steytler and his son Danie join us as a sextet of winemaking genius in the build-up to Father's Day this Sunday, and the desire to spoil the dads in your life, hopefully with some very good wine. So I'm really excited about the show. We've had it on the cards for some time, and in just a few minutes, we'll welcome all 6 of our winemakers to talk through their family stories and the wines that they've made and how they've learnt from each other. And I think fathers have learnt a little from sons as well as the other way around. But we'll see if that is the case very shortly. Before we do that, though, let's have a quick look at some of the latest wine news. So this is the Cape Winemakers Guild. We have some members of said guild on the show this evening, and it is the chance to get a preview ahead of the annual auction. And what a great auction it always is. to check out some of this wine in Cape Town. Your chance at the Cape Town International Convention Centre on the 22nd of August. The 27th of August, you have got Pretoria for the tasting at Pretoria Country Club. You've also got a little later on in the evening at the Bry, and this is a splendid, splendid affair. Winemakers really let their hair down, have a great deal of fun, showcase some terrific wine, but do so in a very, very relaxed setting. And then on Wednesday, the 28th of August, so the day thereafter, at Nedbank HQ in Sandton in Johannesburg, the last of those showcases. The Guild does such a great job with the support of Nedbank in not just delivering some exceptional wine to South Africa, but also raising money to support the next generation of winemakers and the transfer of knowledge from one generation to another. This evening, we have the chance to see fathers passing that knowledge on to their sons, but that's not always the case. And so for those young South Africans, particularly from communities where winemaking hasn't historically been a fixture, the opportunity to share that knowledge and send skills onto a new generation is so vitally important. And the work that the Guild does sits at the core of that. So put those dates in the horizon. And why are we giving them to you in the June when the shows are all in August? Well, that is because these tend to sell out rather quickly. So you do want to make sure you get those tickets nice and early. Then Franschhoek and the Bastille Festival. This is coming up in July. And again, one where tickets tend to sell out. Very proud of the Huguenot history and the French links in Franschhoek, and this brings together food, wine, art, music, and plenty of berets. So that's on the cards for July. You can head over to the Franschhoek website, and they will give you some more details, the ability to buy your ticket. If you're in the Cape, this really is a fun, fun weekend. And then the luxurious Marble Circus. It was at the launch of this last week. This is the Marble Group: David Higgs, Gary Kiriakou, Dino Constantino, Irene Kiriakou, with Marble, both Johannesburg and the soon-to-open Cape Town. Zoo, now reborn with its Asian menu. Saint, with its modern spin on Italy. The Pantry, and Greg Walsh and his G&G Productions, who I've done a number of big events with over the years. Tickets will be on sale from the 13th of June, and it's a chance to combine music with food, with great wine, obscene amounts of Mouta Chandon, but also plenty of great South African wine as well, and just a really lavish affair. Think Met Gala in New York, but with a touch of whimsy to it. Maybe Met Gala meets Africa Burns, somewhere in the middle of those two. And this is your chance to dress up, have some fun, and enjoy what kicks off, I think, is going to be a fixture on the Johannesburg social circuit. So the luxurious Marble Circus, a grand collaboration with Investec, and that's happening on the 26th and 27th of October at Ground at the venue in Muldersdrift. Tickets on sale from the 13th of June. Expect them to go quickly. All right, let's jump into a show I'm really excited about because it's both a collection of terrific winemakers, but also a dynamic that I think is so heartwarming. Seeing a winemaker learn their trade, hone their trade, become proficient at it, become a household name in terms of winemaking, somewhere along that road become a father, and years down the line, watch a young boy grow into a young man, develop a flicker of an interest in what their father does, and years on move into that self-same cellar and become a winemaker as well. And the passing of the baton, that father-sonship headlines our show today with Norman Goodfellows. So a very, very warm welcome to the Ellises who join us, to Neil and Warren. We also have the Riches in Etienne and Christo, and the Steytlers, Danie Jr. and Danie Sr. Guys, welcome. All lovely to have you here ahead of such a special week. I always wonder when you see son follow in father's footsteps, whether it's at the behest of the junior member of the relationship or of the older. So let's find that out from the Ellises as we kick off the show. And lovely to have you both with us, Neil and Warren. Neil, do you think it was always the case that Warren was going to end up being a winemaker, or did he need a bit of a nudge in the right direction from his dad?
Yeah, I must be careful how I answer this, because we are in a sensitive part of our country's history, but I mean, I've got to say it as it is. His introduction to it was as child labor. So I think the minute he could start walking, he was in the winery, and at a very, very tender age would work in his holidays and so forth. So for him, there was, well, what he tells me is that there was no such thing as fireman or policeman or whatever. He, I think, just found it very comfortable being in a winery. So, yeah, for him, I think it was an easy decision.
Let's see if we get agreement there from Warren. Did you always feel, Warren, that following on from your dad was what you would end up doing, or were there briefly entertained dreams of being a Springbok rugby player or a model or a dancer or something other than making wine?
I think none of the above, but definitely maybe a professional student. But I think my other dream job would have been maybe a marine biologist. But in hindsight, I found out that it's not diving and sailing. It's writing up theses. So that was a quick no.
But it probably would have earned you a bit more money than winemaking. So, yeah.
That passing on of knowledge is, I think, driven by a great deal of passion. Etienne, when did you first get a sense that maybe Christo might have a future in the wine industry?
Well, I think he grew up in the wine industry as well, so I think the whole environment just kind of tended in that way for him. He got a lot of support from our friends and our family, and I think that played a big role as well. And I think it came quite natural that he actually just carried on with the wine industry. And I think maybe the bug bit him quite early, at quite an early stage, about wine. Not so sure what happened, whether he also spent some time on the Tussenberg front or not, but he certainly once he got to know more about wine, it just grew on him, and I think he's now fully immersed into it.
He certainly is. And then, Christo, you've more than made your own name in your own right as a winemaker, but you did follow in some pretty impressive footsteps. At what point, as a youngster, did you start to understand and appreciate just who your dad was and how important he was to South African wine?
I would probably say it was around the age of about 14 or 15. I think I still remember. No, actually, might have been quite a bit earlier than that, because I remember my dad still winning the SAA Winemaker of the Year award in 1991 or 1992, and it was this amazing big trophy that he put on display at Rustenburg. And I think that trophy and the size of it kind of solidified in my mind that my dad's a rather good winemaker. It took me many more years to actually figure out why. But I think, yeah, it might actually have been by the age of about 9 or 10 already.
It's kind of like growing up and you discover that your dad is a Springbok. It really is that sort of level when you look at our 3 senior winemakers on the show today. Danie, it wasn't that long ago that we had a show you were on where very sadly you were saying goodbye and remembering a good friend of yours. And the story that came up repeatedly on that show was how much of a mentor the Steytler family had been, starting with our junior Steytler here, how much of that mentoring rubbed off on you? How important was it to have this figure in your dad to guide you not just through life as any father should, but into the world of wine?
Hey Dan, yeah, thanks. I think as a young boy, you very much look up to your dad. He's a very young boy looks at his dad and says, "That's my hero," and you want to impress him or make him proud, and you watch what he does, and then those things become kind of the natural progression when you grow up in wine and surrounded by it and so on, and then becomes like a natural path to follow. So yeah, look, my old man was very important to me being where I am today. We share the same name. I think that adds a little bit of pressure as well, but good pressure.
Was it for you, Danie Senior, something that was really important to you, that Danie Junior did follow on, did become the next Steytler to make wine, or had he decided to go off and follow his dreams as a truck driver or a weightlifter or something completely different? Would that have been okay too?
Dan, with a family business, I'm third generation. So my dad put his whole life in the farm, and I took it from where my dad left, and I had the privilege of farming here for 45 years. And you do your little bit. We're actually just custodians, and we have our turn to run the farm. And I had my turn, and it's now the son's turn, and I'm very happy and blessed that my son is interested. And I must say, we had a youngster coming from school, Arco Larman, who stayed in our house and shared a bedroom with Danie for 4 years. And this little youngster grabbed both opportunities to make wine with 2 hands and couldn't learn quick enough. And my son, he didn't know if it was prison or privilege being the son of a winemaker. But I think seeing how enthusiastic Arco was, I think made Danie also realize, but he's got a great future here. And well, I'm just too pleased that I can leave the baton in my son's hand, and he can take it to another level.
And that's an interesting way to put it, taking it to another level, because in the case of all 3 of our fathers on the show today, 3 exceptional winemakers, 3 guys who've done a huge amount to develop and to grow South African wine. And Neil, how tough is it when you do hand over the reins to let go and to accept that, okay, the new generation is here, it's my son taking over, and if he decides that actually we want to do something a little bit different, I've got to smile and accept it and give him the freedom to do exactly that?
Look, Dan, it's not a matter of looking around you and see what other people are doing. I think I made a decision. I'd start making my decision probably by the late 2000s. And I prepared Warren that there would be a handover in terms of winemaking, viticulture, and so forth, and that he would run solo as from the 2012 vintage. But I mean, he'd spent quite a lot of years with us prior to that. But I think what happened in that period of time, I mean, Warren to this day, and I admire him for that. There are times where I would like him to consult me a bit more, but then when you think about it, maybe he was right. In most cases, he'd been right. But I think where it is important, I think he still values bit of a contribution. And I mean, I think if I look at my 2 learned friends in Etienne and Danie, I think we probably think similarly that, we've got, let's say, I don't like using the term, but I can think of nothing else. We've got nothing to prove. We're not a threat to anybody. All we like to do is make a contribution. And I think if that relationship can exist, then I think it makes for a wonderful future. Now, what I found fascinating often in an area like Burgundy, it wouldn't be uncommon to find 3 generations sitting round a table sharing a glass of wine. And so there'd be the likes of myself and Danie and Etienne. We'd have to listen to our father in this ear and to our son in that ear. So we would sort of be, let's call it, we'd have to balance listening to the moans and groans. And what I can recall, it was always along the lines of, but how can you allow your son to do this? And how can you allow your son to do that? And then it also typically say, in our days, we used to do it like this, this, and that. I mean, this you have to balance. I think it was Etienne who alluded to it, what is normal. And I think this we will pick up very early in our sons' careers, or daughters, if it was daughters. But I think in the three of these guys, they were at the same school, they are at the same university, they were probably a year or three apart, so they've known each other too for a long time, just as I've known Etienne and Danie for 100 years. Important thing there is that I think they know, and they've learned to respect what has been done, irrespective of how humble. And from our side, it's just normal for us to expect that these guys will do better than us. They've arguably had a better grounding, better training. And I think all we can impart is, at this time, is we're another palette, which I think can add some value. But the other thing is to sort of, along the lines, to groom and to polish them in terms of expectations. And it's, if you're not aware of these expectations, you won't manage them well. So I think many of our discussions are probably not so much around the nuances of wine, but also about, how should we look at the way going forward? Because I mean, this is a dynamic process. I mean, we're dealing with nature, and that is ever changing. And I think, like all six of us, I know that in my case, I realized too late in my life the value of an in-depth knowledge of viticulture. And that's why I think, in a subtle way, I try to encourage Warren to embark upon postgrad studies in viticulture, and then at least you will know what good grapes are. But I think the important thing too is that I mean, I can also sense and see that there is this willingness. It's not only about the individuals, it's also about ultimately embarking upon this road where somebody like me can take, let's say, if I can take, let's call it a journey, and look back. And then you'll realize then, but we've actually got bloody smart wines. We've got really good vineyards. We've got really good people. And Warren, at his, well, I can't call it a tender age because he's been at it for some time, but he also realizes the importance of that. And I would say that it is mastering this chemistry of people and place and plants and ultimately wine.
It's a lot of knowledge you have to draw from there, Warren. How does that balance work out? On the one hand, you've got to be your own man, got to be your own winemaker. But on the other, you do have, as your dad, one of the great winemakers South Africa has seen, this incredible resource to be able to draw from. How do you juggle those two elements?
Jeez, Dan, I think my dad made it really, really easy for me. First of all, I think the foundation he set was a very, very solid foundation, and it's something that one can only build on. It's and of course, like, it's all the knowledge is there, help. The other thing is basically when he handed over the reins, he gave me a lot of freedom to express myself and also go into I won't say another direction, but just it was just tweaking of styles. It wasn't completely reinventing the wheel. It was just building on what was already there.
And the results continue to be seen on a vintage by vintage basis from the latest Ellis to be producing great wine. Multiple generations of Steytlers doing likewise. Danie Senior, how much did what you learned from taking over your dad influence how you then handed over to your son and guided that process?
Yeah, for me it was quite easy. My dad wanted to retire at a certain age, and he took my mother away, and he left us on the farm, which was very nice, which my brother joined me later on. With the son, I quickly realized, but when we taste together, the wine I like, he likes. The wine that I don't like, he doesn't like. We taste blind. So we taste very similar. And it was very nice for me to know, well, at least the style of Kaapstad will more or less carry on. And then I saw everything he does, where I used to plant vineyards for 3 weeks with 45 people. He hires a machine that works with laser, and he's got 2 guys packing sticks on, and he does the same job in 1 week. So technology has improved a lot. And I could quickly see, but the youngsters, we don't have to worry about them. They can do the job. And, we've just gone through COVID, a couple of difficult years, and I look at the financials, and he made a profit each year. So who am I to say he's doing the thing wrong? I'm a happy chappy. And where I went wrong is when I was building the business, I worked every Saturday. I was alone in the wine sales. I did marketing, I did everything. And I neglected my children. I didn't even go and watch them play the big matches and so on, because I was working. And only after I employed a whole lot of people could I do it, and then they were finished school already. And that makes my heart very happy that Danie's taking time off for his son, and he's grooming him. He's now the 5th generation that's now 10 years old. And in harvest time, he brings a bin of grapes in, and father and son press it together, and he's growing this love, developing this love for the next generation. So that they will, because he is also a custodian like me, and after a certain amount of years, he's going to say to his son, son, it's your turn now. So that makes me very happy.
That's a heartwarming recollection. I really, really love that one, especially in the context of our Father's Day theme of today's show, which, if you've just joined us, is a Father's Day special with Norman Goodfellows. Danie Jr., that seems like a really important lesson. Your dad, honest enough to say that he there's something he would have changed if he could, looking back. But now you've been able to learn from that, and that sense of balance. One of many great lessons I'm sure you've learned from your dad, but a particularly important one. so we're going to try and get back to him in a moment. Let's jump over to the Riches on that subject of lessons. Christo, if there's a prime lesson you feel you've learned from your dad, other than the art of making rather good wine, what would that be?
I think one of the biggest things with my dad is he rolls with the punches as they come along. And with that, I mean, he's always been somebody to work quite intuitively with his winemaking. Although he does think through things, his winemaking style is one of kind of assessing a vineyard and always focusing on, is this vineyard in balance? Does it feel right where we're busy working with? Or even working in the cellar, not trying to overcomplicate situations, but just kind of letting the wine show itself and letting the kind of the processes that you have express the wine that you're working with. It's something that I don't really listen to very much. It's taken me a lot of years of experience to get there, because I'm someone who really likes a bit of a spreadsheet and controlling everything in my life. I'm a much more of a type A kind of person. But I must say, the older I get and the more experienced I get, the more I'm starting to see the value in kind of the way my dad approaches things, which is kind of just trust the grapes and they'll showcase the very best for you.
Etienne, I'm at a slightly different stage of fatherhood, where my great excitement is when my son puts in a great save to deny somebody on the football field, or my daughter has a great netball match. That's my space as a proud dad. Is it still a case, having tasted now many vintages that Christo's made, do you still open a bottle and have that proud smile of a dad going, yep, that's my son, and he's made something pretty special?
Yes, it certainly is so, and especially lately, we've really been having great success in the cellar as well. So Christo is doing a great job. And initially, we worked together for a couple of years. I think when they come out of training, they're so kind of enthused and they want to do their own thing. So I think you have to live with it, and also give them some responsibility so that they can develop their own character. And there comes a time when you must step out of the limelight and say, well, now it's up to you. And I think that's very necessary. And me and Neil have come a long way as well. I think we were more or less in the same situation all the time. We had young kids and they were also at school. We tried to make time for our kids as well, and but in such a way that they also know what their responsibilities are in the job. And I thought that, well, I could just as well throw Christo in at the deep end and give him the responsibility and to carry the risk himself. There are so many jobs out there in the industry. It's a big industry, and you have to make it attractive for them if you want to have it successful. And they've got so many advantages, as Danie said, with the new technology and the new research, that it's actually, we expect of them to make not similar wines, but the wine should be better than what we had been making. So they I think it's up to them to use that and to make sure that the wines are actually up to standard. So we set high standards for them.
Indeed, you do, but I think we can say quite safely that all three sons have managed to live up to the high standards of their respective fathers. Derek Proud-Jones is watching on our Instagram live feed at the moment. So too is the great Bubbles Ferreira and Angela Lloyd, amongst many watching in different parts of the world. Lovely to have you all on, and a warm warm welcome. Danie Senior, if you look at the era in which you made wine versus the era in which you now see your son operating as a winemaker, different challenges. Today, issues like climate are a lot more to the forefront. The export market plays a far bigger role in the broader conversation. Given the opportunity, which one would you rather have had? Which one do you think is the tougher to have had to take on?
I think I had the easier one. In those years, we made wine for basically 2 months in the beginning, and then the rest of the year you were just a farmer, bulk wine. In the 80s, I started the brand, but we were very small. Nobody knew us. In the 90s, I met Angela, and I started talking to the market out there. And it took my whole life to get the farm known. And we didn't have much competition. But if I look at Platter's book today, how thick it is, and all the new sellers, there's a new generation of winemakers out there. I think I had it much easier than what this generation has got. I think they got a lot more challenges with wars in Russia that affects our market, and because Germany not buying wine, sales are going down in certain areas. So we didn't have those type of challenges which they have today. So I think I had the easy one. I think my son has got quite a hectic life now, keeping the momentum going for the estate. Yeah.
He is doing it, though, and doing it particularly well. I think we've got Danie Jr. back. If we do, Danie, just having this lieutenant by your side, knowing that it's a phone call away, I can't quite get this pinotage right, or there seems to be something wrong with this soil, or I'm just really battling to crack the Swedish market. I think I should go and visit again for 6 weeks. How valuable is that resource of having a dad as you do?
No, very valuable, Dan. It's not even a phone call. He's just normally 10, 15 meters away. We actually, our two houses have a wine cellar, so I can go in and I walk through the cellar into his house, which very lucky to be able to, bounce off ideas, have a coffee with him, and tap off his experience. Yes, I thought here in Joburg our internet would be lacquer, but it seems like we're coming and going. So I've missed a lot of the conversation, but I did want to say that the three sons, Warren and Christo, excellent winemakers. Myself, still trying to get there. But our big fortune is that, all three, Uncle Neil, Uncle Etienne, my father, they all three started their brands. And we're very fortunate to have dads that, let us take that business over and build on that. Unfortunately, not all dads are like that, and sometimes I think it's sad that they don't let go like ours have. So we're very fortunate as youngsters to have been able to been given the opportunities we have.
And I think you speak indirectly to what I wanted to ask all three of our sons. I find that my perspective, my philosophy on so much in life has changed quite dramatically, having become a father, what I value, what's important to me, how I want to live my life. And as a result, the influence and the role model status I hopefully can create for my own kids. Kicking off with you, Warren, how is your dad as the dad, rather than just your dad as this world famous winemaker, influenced you not just to be the person you are today, but also looking at fatherhood from your own perspective?
Well, geez, he's, for me, well, not only as a winemaker, a big role model, and but I think everything that he's achieved in his time on Earth is quite a big deal for me. And then, of course, all the opportunities that he's given me. It's I think one doesn't always realize all the opportunities when you're younger, but I think as you grow older, in hindsight, you kind of realize everything that he sacrificed and everything that he's given to me.
I'm sure that applies to others as well, but let's get some specific perspective. Christo, your dad influencing you certainly as a winemaker, certainly as a masterful exponent of the art of Cabernet Sauvignon, but just that idea of setting a role model as a person and as a parent, aside from the winemaking side.
No, definitely. I think if I think back, my dad was the one who introduced me to the ocean. He's much more, his love is much more around fishing, and he used to be a big spear fisherman. I'm more focused on surfing and now spearfishing again. So, and that's kind of been one of the biggest blessings and gifts that he's been able to give me, was that level of enjoyment. But then also, obviously, growing up in a town like Stellenbosch and being able to have the opportunities that I've had, and that's all been a foundation that he's laid. So no, it's I think Warren said it very well, but it's a father's got so much influence on the decisions that your kids in the end will take, and I think that's the way I see it with my sons as well. Is that it's all about exposing them to things in life that you love, and hoping that they'll see your passion for it as well, but giving them the freedom and the opportunity to go and kind of figure it out for themselves as well, and put their own stamp on it. And I think that's what I've found so valuable with my dad is even in the wine trade, he gave me the foundation and the platform to stand on. And in the end, it was up to me to kind of decide, how do I want to move around on this platform? And I could either jump off, or we could kind of keep going upwards. And I'm glad I got on the platform and joined him in it, because it's I've definitely haven't looked back, and I don't regret my decision at any point.
Which is a fabulous and well-deserved tribute to your father. Danie Steytler Jr. is coming and going. I think he's downloading some of those Dutch movies off the internet that he promised me he'd stop doing. So sorry about that, Danie Sr. But we'll come back to you, because I want to find out about it going the other way around. If I look as a relatively young dad, I've got kids teaching me very important things like Minecraft and famous YouTubers and stuff that largely goes over my head. You've been able, as Danie Jr. has said, to teach your son so much, give him such valuable lessons. What have you learned in return, Danie Sr., both about wine and about life in general, from your son, who I know as a good friend is just an incredible young man?
Yeah, if I think back, the youngsters I studied at Stellenbosch, they network as friends. I think he's brought a lot to the farm with friends, advice, be it winemaking or bookkeeping or everything. The youngsters I network, well, Etienne and Neil and I also used to do it in a very small scale. I used to ride with the motorbike over to Neil. He was at Zevenwacht at those stage, and he used to help me with the winemaking, because my friends actually taught me to make wine. I studied agriculture, but not winemaking. So I got by with a little help from my friends, thanks to Neil and Etienne and a few other winemakers. I think I'm just very thankful that Danie networks with his friends. I mentioned the technology is got as much better than what Etienne and Neil and we had, with sorting tables and all that. I'm actually quite excited when I taste the wines. I can clearly see the wines have improved. He's making much better wines than I made. Wine is very forgiving, and red wine makes itself. I saw myself more as a red wine maker, but he's getting excellent results with white wine in our area. When we are on the northern side of the hill, with Shannon and so on. So he's brought a lot to the farm, which, as I said earlier on, we don't have to worry about the youth. They can do the job.
Well, I have had great people guiding them into the space they are today. Etienne, I'll fire a similar question at you. We know how much Christo has learned from his dad, and the rave reviews on the newest Riche Reserve Cab range are testament to that. But what about the other way around from a wine perspective, but also more generally? What has your son taught you as you've watched him grow up?
Well, I think you always think of your son as a little boy and as that he would never grow up, but other people see him as a grown-up person, and they're actually becoming adults now. They all have families of their own, so have their own responsibilities. And I think with that comes a feeling of caring, and also taking on life on their own. And I think it's good for me to see that I can now just slowly start releasing and letting go, and that he's doing a good job. And so I feel quite satisfied as far as that is concerned. I think so that's something that I've learned from him, that you must let things go and trust in the younger generation.
And that trust is certainly not misplaced, as again we see with every vintage, and not just from the wine, just from the people themselves that these three have become. Neil, wrapping up that particular question, and for you, you've learned that your son can make exceptional wine. We all know that. What else have you learned from both Warren the winemaker and Warren the man?
I think arguably one of the most important things to me is really not that much wine related, or let's say the detail of wine. It could be ultimately it's related to it. But Warren is a very good father to his kids and a good husband to his wife. And I think that is essential. If you need, let's call it, the kind of heart you need to employ in caring for wine. It's often been said, a happy wife, happy life. It's no, but he in that respect. I mean, I think it's essential that you get that right. But yes, I think other than that, I mean, Warren is where I could be, I'm not say be fiery, which there would be times of that. Warren is far more relaxed and far more calculated. So, there was always, we had and Etienne will think back to those days when Chardonnay started. Danie de Vet always alluded to the fact, he said that red wine makers will make better Chardonnay than white wine makers in this country, for the simple reason they're more relaxed. And I think my good friend Etienne is arguably one of the most relaxed guys I know. But yes, look, I mean, a lot changes. And I mean, there are so many things that bear influence on decisions daily. And I mean, even a winemaker outside of the winery needs to be making so many decisions that influence the bigger picture. And I think in that respect, Warren has a very balanced approach, and which gives me comfort. Although I'm still sort of somewhat in the background, I still need to make certain decisions, and I just find I can't do it without him. So that has added another, let's call it, another dimension to this environment, where I think it just affords us an environment where I strongly believe that our team is a bit stronger because of him.
It has been lovely this evening getting a chance to dig into the dynamic between three terrific father and son pairs on our father and son special Father's Day special on Dan Really Likes Wine. I want to wrap up with a last tribute to our three fathers on the show from three very accomplished sons. A tough one to answer for all three of you, but we'll give it a go. Christo, if I can ask you, and there are going to be so many to choose from, I know, but give me a moment that comes to mind instantly where you think of how your father has created an incredible memory or influenced you considerably as you've made your journey into the wine career, where he perhaps brought together not just being a great winemaker, but also just a great father, a great dad, a great friend.
Well, there's a lot of things. I think there's two things, if you're kind of just thinking through kind of two moments that I always remember. One was when I caught my first proper sized fish. I think I was about 5 years old, and I was fishing down in a rock pool, and I accidentally cast out into the big ocean, and I ended up catching a quite nice sized fish. And I still remember screaming in ecstasy and looking up at my dad, and he was standing on top of the rock, even screaming even louder than I was, which I think was a great experience for me. And then the second one was, while I was, this was in 2008, when I was just still busy with my travels. My dad had received a phone call from the contractor who I received my kind of opportunity into working at Screaming Eagle in the US. And I still remember him taking the phone call and very candidly being like, yes, he might be interested. Okay, let me hear from him, and then we'll call you back. And him still putting down the phone and giving me this look with a smirk on his face and being like, would you like to go and work at Screaming Eagle? And I almost fell off my chair at that stage. And I think just kind of that relaxed attitude he's always had. But whenever I've had success, he's shown that passion and that enjoyment of my successes, and he's shared them with me. And I think that's something that's really special. I think my sister's also obviously involved. So between the three of us, if we achieve success, it's shared. It's not just the individual. And you also realize that it's not my wines, it's our wines. And yeah, that's for me something special to be able to share with him and have those memories that I'll always cherish going forward.
It's a fantastic snapshot of a beautiful relationship. I think we have Danie Jr. back with us. Danie, I'll put the same one to you. A particular memory, particular moment, particular influence where your dad just delivered something really special in terms of the lasting impact it had on you?
Yeah, there's so many, but
we are really battling, unfortunately, with Danie Jr.'s internet, unfortunately. We'll try and get him back in a second, but let's nip back to Ellis HQ. And the same one for you, Warren, as you look back over the many, many, many memories I know you'll have forged with your father over the years. What are one or two that really do stick out?
Phew. That's like you said, there's many, and it's difficult to choose. But I think the ones I really like to cherish and keep is are those days against where he comes to support us next to the rugby fields. I think especially during varsity, I think for the sole reason it was probably my best time or my most favorite time playing rugby, and especially if we win those games. That was always like and then the chat afterwards, those Sunday lunches, chatting about the game, what either went wrong or what went very right.
These those memories, of course, have formed such a rich part of the father-son dynamic, and that in the case of our three fathers and sons have given us not just a really cool show, but also some terrific insight into three great winemaking families and some of the elements that have made them so successful. I will have one last crack at Danie Jr. I think we've got him back. Danie, just a quick one if we can sneak it in, just some of those great memories from your own father.
Yeah, I'm so bleak that this internet is shit because there's so much lacquer things to talk about and there's so many memories. But yeah, Newlands for me is probably very special. Trips out there, opening blind wines and having a fire going and braaiing and going to the rugby. Really instilled a lot of love for wine.
And a lot of love on the show tonight between 6 great winemakers who also happen to be 3 great father and son pairs. And part of the reason I wanted to do this show was not just to celebrate the great winemakers, celebrate their relationships, but also ahead of Father's Day, showcase the very best of father and son relationships, because unfortunately one of the realities of South Africa is that in far too many families in our country, the father figure isn't there, and families are not full of the support and love that they perhaps always should be. And here we saw the right side of things, and some really good news stories from 6 wonderful people. So guys, to all of you, thank you. I think we could have done this for another couple of hours, particularly on the memory side, of which there are so very many. To Neil, to Etienne, to Danie Senior, thank you for giving us not just 3 exceptional winemakers, but as I've got to know them in the wine industry over the years, 3 fantastic people as well. And they do you rich credit. And to Danie Jr., to Christo, and to Warren, you guys have got an amazing trio of fathers. I have a great deal of admiration and respect and fondness for all 3. You're 3 very lucky boys. I know you know that particularly well, and I know that carrying on their legacy is something that means so much to all 3 of you. So to the family Ellis, to the family Steytler, and to the family of Riche, have a wonderful Sunday in your respective roles as fathers. Open some really good bottles. We'll be raising a glass to all of you. Thank you, not just for a wonderful show, but thank you for a lot of inspiration, a lot of smiles, and some wonderful memories. Keep that up, and in, I don't know, 40, 50 years' time, we look forward to repeating this show with Danie Jr., Christo Jr., and Warren Jr., and picking up on that one. But until then, have a wonderful week. Have a very special Sunday to all of you. And thank you for making our Father's Day show as special as you have.
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
I absolutely love that. Look, I love all 6 of the guys we had a chance to chat to, and I love talking wine about them. But that added dimension of fatherhood and the family dynamic and passing on the legacy from one generation to the next really does have something wonderful about it. And it's a very important part of our winemaking community and of the stories that get handed down through the generations. So grab yourself from your nearest Norman Goodfellows a bottle of Ellis, a bottle of Riche, a bottle of Steytler, maybe one of each for Sunday. Celebrate the fathers in your life and raise a glass to them and to great fathers like Neil, like Etienne, like Danie, who've not just done a great job inspiring their own sons, but by extension, so many more beyond. That does it for us for today. A big thank you to Miguel Chan and the Southern Sun team here at Sant and Sun for the use of the cellar for this evening's show. I'm going to nip over and join the Stellenbosch Wine Routes team and see how their evening is going. It'll be terrific wine on show as usual, and it should be a cracking evening. To all the fathers out there, have a wonderful Sunday. To those celebrating with fathers, make sure it's a great one. Thank you for joining us. Catch the magazine show on Thursday evening, and I'll be back next Monday, the live show with Melu Lambert, along with a selection of winners from the first edition of the Fine Wine Awards. Until then, I need a jumper to recover from the air conditioning and some Stellenbosch wine to warm me up. Have a great night. Have a great Father's Day. This is Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows. Goodbye.